Every Australian construction site has a car park, and every car park tells the same story now. Hilux, Hilux, Ranger, Hilux, Triton, Ranger, Hilux, 20 years of tradie loyalty parked in 3 rows, and then, somewhere between 2024 and the end of 2025, something shifted that nobody at Toyota Australia, nobody at Ford Australia, and nobody in the FCAI wanted to say out loud. The tradies stopped agreeing on which new ute to buy next. In 2025, Toyota Hilux sales in Australia fell 11.6%. Ford Ranger sales fell 6.8%. The two utes that have defined Australian working life for 2 decades both lost meaningful ground in a market that grew overall. And the volume that moved did not go to Mazda, did not go to Mitsubishi, did not go to Volkswagen. It went to LDV, to GWM, to BYD. Australian tradies, the most brand-loyal customer segment in the entire national car market, started doing the maths. And the maths broke a 20-year habit. The Federal Chamber of Automotive Industries publishes monthly VFAX data covering every new vehicle sold in Australia. Their full-year 2025 commercial vehicle report contained a sentence that, in plain English, said this: Chinese light commercial vehicle market share in Australia has grown from under 3% in 2020 to over 14% in 2025. Forecast trajectory suggests it will exceed 22% by the end of 2026. That is not a trend. That is a takeover happening in real time, on every worksite, in every regional town, in every trade vehicle order book in the country. 7 new utes, sold to Australian tradies in 2026, are now being walked past on showroom floors. Not because they are bad utes, some of them are excellent, but because the calculation a tradie does at 3 in the morning before signing finance paperwork no longer adds up the way it did 5 years ago. Brand by brand, in order of how badly the tradie market has turned against them. Here is what is actually happening. Ute 1, the Volkswagen Amarok. Reborn in 2023 as a co-development with the Ford Ranger, the Amarok was supposed to be the German-engineered premium ute that Australian tradies trading up would choose over the Ranger Wildtrak. That is not what happened. The Amarok in its top of Ventura spec is over 92,000 Australian dollars drive away. The mechanically near-identical Ford Ranger Wildtrak X is around 86,000. The Ranger Raptor, on the same platform, is around 90,000 and significantly more capable off-road. 3 documented issues compound the price problem. The Amarok's diesel particulate filter regeneration system has triggered Australian forum complaints since launch. The AdBlue tank refill intervals are shorter than the Ranger equivalent due to a smaller reservoir, and the 8-year European service interval expectations do not align with Australian regional servicing realities. Tradies in Australia do not pay extra for a German badge on a Ford ute that costs more, requires AdBlue, and is serviced through a smaller dealer network. The market has answered. Amarok sales in 2025 were under 3,000 units nationally. That is below niche, in a segment selling over 180,000 vehicles annually. Ute 2, the Ram 1500. And this one is a category problem, not a vehicle problem. The Ram 1500, in its Australian right-hand drive remanufactured form sold through Walkinshaw, starts at 142,000 Australian dollars drive away for the Bighorn variant. The Laramie Sport is over 175,000. That is double, in some specs triple, the cost of a fully optioned Ranger or Hilux. 3 problems for the working tradie. First, the dimensions. The Ram 1500 is over 2 meters wide. It does not physically fit through the gates of most Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane construction sites without scrape damage to mirrors and bodywork. Second, the fuel consumption. Real-world combined economy on the V8 Hemi cites between 15 and 18 litres per 100 kilometres. At current Australian diesel and premium unleaded prices, a Ram 1500 working 40,000 kilometres a year is between $4,000 and $6,000 more expensive to fuel than a Ranger per year. Third, and most damaging to resale, the right-hand drive remanufacturing process. Used Ram 1,500 buyers in Australia now ask openly whether the conversion has held up. Wholesale auction prices for 3-year-old Rams have collapsed faster than any other ute on this list, with retention rates below 45% in Cars Guide's most recent analysis. The Ram 1500 is an excellent recreational vehicle. As a working ute, the Australian tradie market has rejected it. Ute 3, the Ineos Grenadier, and specifically the Quartermaster dual cab ute variant, launched in Australia in 2024. The Quartermaster is a fascinating vehicle, genuinely capable off-road, built like an old Defender, which was the design brief. Powered by a BMW-sourced inline-6 engine that is mechanically excellent. None of that matters to a working tradie. The Quartermaster starts at $110,000 drive away. The Trialmaster variant is over $120,000. For that money, an Australian tradie can buy a Ranger Wildtrak, fit a full canopy, ARB suspension lift, snorkel, light bar, draw system, and still have $8,000 left over for fuel. And then there is the dealer network. Ineos operates 11 retail locations across Australia. For tradies in regional New South Wales, regional Queensland, regional Western Australia, and Tasmania, the nearest authorised service centre is regularly over 400 kilometres away. A tradie cannot run a one-man business on a vehicle that, when it breaks, requires a 500-kilometre tow. The mathematics of downtime on a vehicle this expensive do not work. Quartermaster sales in 2025 were under 500 units across the entire country. If you are about to put 50, 80, or 100,000 Australian dollars into a new ute, the next 10 minutes of this video could be the most important research you do this year. This channel publishes a new investigation every week into what is actually moving in the Australian car market. Brand exits, workshop refusals, tradie market shifts, the data the wholesalers and dealers already have, presented to the people who actually need it before they sign the paperwork. Subscribe to the Calder report. Tap the bell. Every video could save you tens of thousands of dollars on the vehicle you're about to buy. Ute 4, the Musso. And this one has a problem most tradies do not even know about yet. The brand has changed name. SsangYong, the Korean manufacturer that built the Musso, was renamed KGM in late 2023 after acquisition by KG Group. Every Musso sold in Australia from 2024 onwards is technically a KGM product. The badges have changed. The dealer signage has changed. The after-sales support contracts have been renegotiated. For a tradie who bought a SsangYong Musso in 2021 or 2022, the brand he bought no longer exists in the form he bought it. 3 consequences. First, parts supply. SsangYong badge parts are now superseded items in the KGM catalogue, with 3 to 6 week wait times common for non-stocked components. Second, dealer reluctance. Multiple Australian dealers walked away from SsangYong during the transition, leaving regional owners with no authorised service option. Third, resale uncertainty. Used buyers ask correctly whether the Musso badge on the tailgate still represents an active manufacturer in Australia. The Musso is a competent ute at a working price. The problem is that the Australian tradie market does not buy uncertainty, and brand transitions, however necessary at corporate level, register at the worksite as exactly that. Ute 5, the LDVT-60, specifically the first-generation variant sold in Australia between 2017 and 2023. And this one is the warning shot the entire Chinese ute segment needed to take seriously. LDV was the first Chinese manufacturer to seriously target Australian tradies, with the original T60 priced aggressively in the high 30s, at a time when a Ranger or Hilux equivalent was well above 60. Tradies bought them. The volume was real. And then the second-generation LDVT-60 Max Plus arrived, the GWM Cannon Alpha launched, and the BYD Shark 6 entered the market with a plug-in hybrid drivetrain. Suddenly, the first generation T60 was the oldest Chinese ute on the road, competing against newer Chinese utes from competing manufacturers on price. Used T60 values in 2026 have collapsed. Cars Guide's latest data shows 3-year retention for the 2021 LDV T60 sitting at 38%. That is the worst 3-year retention figure of any new vehicle sold in Australia between 2020 and 2022. Worse than any European luxury sedan. Worse than any depreciation-prone EV. The lesson is brutal. Being the first Chinese ute into the Australian market in 2017 did not protect early LDV adopters. Being the best Chinese ute in the Australian market today is a title that changes hands every 12 months. Ute 6, the Mazda BT-50. And this is the most important ute on this list because of what it reveals about how the Australian tradie market actually thinks. The BT-50, in its current generation launched in 2020, is built on the same platform as the Isuzu D-Max. The same chassis, the same diesel engine, the same gearbox, the same axles. Mechanically, the two vehicles are siblings. The Isuzu D-Max in equivalent spec is regularly $5,000 cheaper than the Mazda BT-50. Tradies have noticed, Mazda BT-50 sales in 2025 were under 14,000 units. Isuzu D-Max sales in the same period were over 25,000. Mazda's market share in the ute segment has fallen every year since the platform sharing arrangement began. The conclusion the working market has reached is unforgiving. If you want the D-Max platform, buy the D-Max. If you want a Mazda, buy a CX-5. Paying a premium for a Mazda badge on an Isuzu ute is the kind of mistake the tradie next to you on the worksite will notice. And mention Ute 7, the Tesla Cybertruck. And this one is the ute Australian tradies are refusing to buy because they are not allowed to buy it. As of 2026, the Tesla Cybertruck is not approved for sale in Australia. The width exceeds the maximum permitted under the Australian design rules. The aluminium bull bar configuration does not comply with Australian pedestrian impact standards. The steering geometry does not meet Australian heavy vehicle regulation thresholds. Tesla Australia has, as of the most recent public statement, no confirmed timeline for Cybertruck local certification. The result is a vehicle that has accumulated genuine cultural awareness in Australia. Tradies have seen it on social media. They have asked their dealers about it. They have priced grey import options ranging from $180,000 to over $240,000. And then they have been told, by their accountant or by the Australian Border Force, that bringing one in privately means it cannot be registered, cannot be insured for trade use, cannot be claimed against business expenses, cannot drive on Australian public roads at all. That awareness, combined with the impossibility of legitimate purchase, has poisoned the demand for every other Tesla product among the tradie segment. The Model Y, the only Tesla legally sold in Australia today, has seen its tradie segment sales collapse to under 2% of total deliveries. A brand that cannot deliver the product its customers want is a brand that loses the customers it already has. Every ute on this list shares one thing. The tradies talked to each other before the data confirmed what they already knew. Worksite car parks are the most efficient market research environment in Australia. A tradie buying a new ute does not just buy the vehicle, he buys the response he will get when he pulls onto the site Monday morning. The nod, the silence, or the quiet comment behind his back. That social filter is more accurate than any FCAI data, any Cars Guide analysis, any dealer projection. By the time a ute starts disappearing from worksite car parks, the wholesalers, the auctioneers, and the dealer networks have already adjusted their numbers around it. The dealers are the last to admit it. The tradies are the first to know. Here is what every tradie about to buy a new ute should do this week. Walk the car parks of 3 different work sites in your area. Not yours. 3 others. Count the utes. If a brand is not represented across all 3 sites, the market has already voted with its feet, and you are about to vote against it. That single hour of fieldwork is more accurate than any review, any test drive, and any dealer pitch. The benchmark, the same one we use in every report on this channel, is the Toyota Hilux SR5. Despite the 11% decline in 2025, the Hilux retains 76% of value at 3 years. It is accepted at every independent mechanic in Australia. And on every worksite car park from Cape York to Tasmania, you will find one. That is not coincidence. That is consensus. With the Chinese share of the Australian ute market projected to exceed 22% by the end of 2026, the brands the tradies still trust represent a list that is short, contracting, and worth knowing by name. Subscribe to the Calder report. Tap the bell. Every week, we show you exactly what is moving in the Australian car market before it moves past you.